What's good, traders? Darnell Price here, and welcome to another episode of Momentum Movers. It's the weekend, and you know what that means. It's time for another market recap and forecast. NASDAQ had some awesome moves last week. Gold traded in a pretty wide range, but it was still a decent balance. With NVDA earnings coming up next week, let's go ahead and break these charts down and see what we got setting up for plays in the upcoming week. Alright, let's get right into it. So if we go and start at Globex Open on Sunday, you can see due to the shortened holiday week, I think we had President's Day, we found ourselves sandwiched between a tight zone, a tight balance between demand at the bottom, there was, and market order sellers at the top, denoted by the aggressive sell-offs we had every time we got to that level around the 22,300s. We then again found support and tried to have a momentum breakout to the upside, which you could see here, but it immediately failed. And I think we get like one more attempt to a push up into that supply right here. Yeah, that's where the demand came in. And then we get one more attempt to the supply after that Wednesday melt up, and then Friday, starting at the open, we immediately sold off, and that's where we find ourselves starting today. Alright, so this is my second time recording this. The first time I forgot that my mic was muted, so I've already went over the spiel to myself. Y'all wasn't there. I guess I will delete it all, because let's go ahead and hit the back button, and we'll just go back all the way through it. Starting with Sunday. So if we start right here on Sunday, we can see right here, denoted by this wick, this is pretty much the significant area that I would consider last week's balance. If you stretch it all the way through, you'll see why I find it somewhat important. This week is where we spent majority of last week's price action. We did attempt to get out the top side, aggressively selling off. This is a 4-hour time frame chart, so you can see that every time we pushed above, we did sell off back into it, coming to about the midpoint of the range, again trying again for a second time or a third time, and selling back off, followed by the last push. I think this would have been that Thursday leading up. Yeah, this was Thursday, Wednesday to Thursday. We had that. I was talking about it on the when we were looking at the momentum, the moving averages, how we had that one last attempt to break above resistance that was followed by a sell-off, and which led to Friday's Thursday's melt up, followed by Friday's sell-off. If we look at where this range extends to, you can see from the FOMC sell-off how when we tried to get back up there on two different occasions, here and here, we immediately sold off to what can be considered an even bigger balance range from the past, and that would be denoted by these two equal highs on the 4-hour. I wouldn't go, you can go all the way down because really the range is down there, but a little bit short of that area is where I would, if I was short, I would be lightening up, lightening up on my position, if not going flat, just to gauge the reactions, because there is support a little bit above where, excuse me, let me try to isolate this one dot. Yeah, so if we just drag this to the left, let me go ahead and label these correctly. These are both balance ranges of somewhat importance. But yeah, so if you consider this balance range that we fell off of, the low of which is down here, the exact level around 21k, right? Even 21k down here, and then we have the top of it right here. Where'd it go? Yeah, 21,900. So about a good 1,000-point range is what we're looking at. That's possible for NASDAQ. So if I were to just consider, what path we could take, if we're neutral, we would stay pretty much inside of this range for the duration of the week. Let me label that neutral. If we're bullish, I would like to see us at some point during the week, and this doesn't have to, go up first and then down. It's just denoting that we would stay inside of the range between 21,965 and 21K. But if we're bullish, I would be looking for some type of structure that gets us back into last week's range, and then if not, up, even if we don't go to all-time highs, even if we could just find some neutral balance inside of this range, right? Neutral to higher in last week's range. If we could reclaim that and maybe even break out of the top, find support, and then take out, last week's high and all-time highs, that's for the bull case. If not, even if we stay neutral and trade, and say it'll be a bit volatile, and you'll have to manage risk, a little bit more cautiously. However, this is a decent trading range if we are to stay in this lower range. For the bear case, what would it look like to be a bear in this market? If we do come up, reject, find some kind of resistance, and continue to break down at these key levels. Let me turn that red so it doesn't confuse. This is what the bear case may look like, retesting the top of the range that we broke down in, or if not, retesting the top of, just aggressively selling off to the bottom like we have in the past. We could gap lower and just sell off. That is also an option. We did have that weak opening gap from the past where it was a low liquidity environment, and on Globex, we had a decent, a little bit lower from where we closed Friday. We did, we can just not even trade those prices, right? We can just open close, in the lower third of this 4-hour balance range. As far as getting more aggressively bearish than breaking outside of that range, I think we'll have to just, look at prices down there and find levels, based on the past. There is a lot to trade for down there. We have this balance. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention too. I mentioned it earlier. However, like I say, my mic was on mute. When we sold off Friday, we were in somewhat, I don't know how you draw your trend lines. You could draw it like that. But no matter how you draw it, we have had a bit of a sell-off below some significant, a significant trend line, diagonal trend line support. So it is a potential that, like I say, if we do want to continue lower, there is liquidity and stops below all of these lows. So there is a decent trajectory, a decent path to break these lows. These relatively equal lows, so we do have an objective to the downside should we want to meet it, and we also have liquidity built up from the run-up since mid-January, to get us there. So anybody long in this market with stops below these lows that have been untouched since they were created, they would capitulate those trades on the break, and any loans, to get out of a loan you have to sell, so it would add to the sell pressure as we came to that weekly balance range. If you want to know why this 2760 level is so important, why I have it on my screen, we could take a look at the momentum chart. If we switch to the weekly time frame, zoom in a bit, you can see we have what could be called a weekly balance range right here. Wherever you put the top doesn't matter, but the bottom of it right here is 20,740. So 20,760, same general area. I would be watching that level because that's where, you know, if you look at the chart now, even on the weekly time frame, scrunching it up a little bit more, since about the beginning of last year, since 2023. So for the last 2 years now, we're 2025 now. On the weekly time frame, we've been on a steady uptrend, making, you know, low, higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low, high, higher highs, higher highs, higher highs, higher highs, higher highs. If we were, I think even right here when we sold off, we made an equal low, right? You know, so not really putting in on a swing term, lower lows, but if we break that low, on that balance range I was just speaking of, it could be the first weekly lower low, which could have targets as low as, like, say just 20k even. So watching the level around 20,700 is going to be key, because things could get pretty bearish on the weekly time frame, should that break occur. If we switch down to the daily time frame, you can see Friday, just considering momentum, not really the levels anymore, but we did find moving average support at Friday's close. So yeah, I am anxious to see how we open. Do we open up with a gap, maybe to like 21,400? I remember that being the midpoint of a previous week open gap. I think this gap right here is 21,400. So I would like to see how we act at or around that level. 21,400 is that level again. If we immediately find support and reject, like I say, getting back up into last week's value range, you know, where we spent most of the time, I'd be anxious to see, you know, do we reject that? Do we reject the highs? You know, there's a lot of resistance above us, right? The path to least resistance, in my opinion, is to the downside, considering that we have broke into that longer term balance range after drawing liquidity from higher, right? Excuse me. You know, there's a lot of area to traverse, a lot of ticks to take. Getting back to 21k even. You know, as far as breaking back up after that aggressive sell-off Friday, everybody that long last week that went long, that's overhead supply. They'd love to get out break even. So I'd be anxious to see if buyers can come in and make this green path possible. I'm not in that band camp. At best, I think we could stay neutral, if not even trading for a break of that weekly balance range, or that 4-hour balance, and seeking lower prices, you know, around the 20k level. Yeah, that's it for, you know, as far as levels and momentum. I think, you know, if we did take a look, that's the 1 day. If we took a look at the 4-hour, again, finding support, we may get a reflex bounce, but again, I'd be looking to see what happens just under last week's value area, seeing if we, you know, reject there and start seeking lower prices. All right, from here, I think we'll take a look at gold. So I'm gonna go ahead and breeze through this one pretty quick, because for the, I don't know, it's been about 4 or 5 times I've tried to record this segment, and due to my own carelessness, like I say, this is my 3rd or 4th time recording this segment, whether I had the mic on mute or whether I just started talking and didn't even hit the record button. But regardless, taking it from the top again, if we go ahead and jump into the 30-minute chart, after the holiday shortened week we had due to President's Day, gold opened this week low, and then proceeded to go ahead and melt up to new all-time highs on the back of some pretty bullish momentum. We poked a new all-time high, right? Yeah, above 2962, made a slightly higher high on the, you know, on the all-time highs, and then we proceeded to balance. You know, I think the all-time high break is coming up soon. Forgive me for rushing through it, but yeah, there's the all-time high. and then we sold off, not so aggressive, but notable, and we stayed in the higher half inside a premium. Didn't really go into deep discount for the weekly move. This may have been a test of the 50%. However, we just pretty much consolidated to end the week in the higher half of the weekly candle. That said, where do we go from here? Is it bullish? Is it bearish? If we take a look at the monthly chart on gold, actually the gold is still extremely bullish, right? Momentum is still pointing to the upside. We are, aggressively breaking out to the upside after consolidating for a month or two back, starting back in November and December. So, we have a decent start for a bullish year this year in gold. Taking a look at the weekly, we have 3, 6, 8 consecutive green weekly candles, right? Also bullish. Is it time for a red one? Possibly so. Will I be trading for it? I may actually trade for it. However, I'll be doing so not with big size, but just because of the risk appetite that I have. Sometimes I do risky things. Is it probable? Well, let's get into that. So if we take a look at the daily is bullish, but it's been consolidating at the highs, and it's having a decent amount of time, a decently hard time breaking and sustaining any highs above this consolidation. If we look and you say, well, okay, it's bullish, you don't want to buy up here, where do you want to buy it? I'd be looking down here at like the 2800 level, right? The high 27s, the low 2800 as the cheapest long where you can manage your risk. Will we get there? I'm not sure. There's also support at 2858, but regardless, that support, those buy areas are lower. The first two digits will be at 28, if not 20, high 27s for us, for a more confident long. If we drop down to the 4 hour, this is the reason why I say we may have if we break Friday's low, last week's low, again, we have support around the 2880s. Below that, 2815, that 28 even, the low 2810s to the 28 even level, it keeps popping up as a decent support. So if I had to find a place to buy gold for a trade to hold back up to all-time highs, that would be the area that I'm looking for. If we just take a look at levels alone, again, let's not forget we do have NVDA earnings after the close. Not much really going on the earnings calendar. We'll get into that in a minute. What I really wanted to show, like I say, I've recorded this a few times and I've drawn the same drawings a few times. We do have this balance area that we could see on the daily, I think it was, but more so on the 4 hour, that if you switch to an even lower time frame, looks a bit head and shoulderish. If we break last week's low, get below, say 29.41, that's where you may find that short down to 2800. But however, that said, there are some significant supports along the way. So like I said, you might find a short opportunity in gold. However, it may not be as clean as a short in NQ. For the cleanest short, the cheapest short, I would be looking at the high of this balance range, where we've tried many times before poking this previous all-time high to extend outside, and we've had some decent rejections and followed by some decent sell-offs off of this level. So if you ask me where's the best place to short where you could limit risk, for about 40 ticks, I think it was when I measured it, $400 on the mini, you could maybe a little bit above that, you have decent risk reward. I want to say that there was how many ticks? So from that level down to the bottom of the box is about 230 ticks. So a good 2,000 you could risk for to make 400 to make 2,000. That's a pretty decent risk reward, even if you only got traded to the midpoint, right, of that box. you know, that's still 5 to 1 to the bottom, 5 to 2.5 to the center. Decent risk reward on a cheap trade, risking $400. That's what I see in gold. You know, those are the levels. These are the levels that I'd be watching in gold. I'll go ahead and stick them over here. If you want, pause the screen. All-time highs, I think I talked about that level. That level comes from the 4-hour. If we did break new all-time highs, that's just a level that I would watch out for. The 28,840, seeing if we could get above that and sustain. I think that's where the rejection may come from. You know, if we did poke a new all-time high. But with this bearish structure right here that drew liquidity from the upside, if we start taking out the low of that balance, that's when I'd be worried, and I'd start looking for lower prices in the low 2800s. All right. But yeah, moving right on along, we do have NVDA earnings next week, right? Be mindful of that Wednesday after the close, not so much prior to that. And as far as eco news, next week we have only the real significant things will be consumer confidence and maybe PCE. The rest is, you know, while there are some red folders, I think, you know, they're not significant enough to. I think NVIDIA earnings, PCE, and consumer sentiment, consumer confidence will be the things to watch for next week. All right, we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. All right, so once again, I want to thank you for joining me, taking a look at my levels. I'll go ahead and leave those levels right, you know, at their normal spot. I'll go ahead and leave those levels at the normal spot right here. Go ahead and, you know, are you bullish? Are you bearish? Leave those comments below. Let me know what you did, what you didn't like. If you did like this, please like and subscribe this video. I really do appreciate the company that y'all give me. Again, pay attention to these levels coming into next week for both NQ and NASDAQ and gold. Be mindful of NVIDIA earnings, and I think that's about it. I'll see y'all during the week. You know, I always live stream randomly right now whenever I see opportunities in the market. But let's go ahead and pass these combines, take payouts in these XFAs, and be great. Trade well, trade smart, trade on. Darnell Price out. Once again, don't forget to like and subscribe.